Okay, I see it's nearly 5 minutes past the hour, so I think we can kick things off. Good afternoon once again to all of you who have joined us, and thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time, and I will do my best to make this a very meaningful and informative training session for you on Primal Pictures. For those who don't know me, my name is Stephanie, one of the anatomists from Learning Curve, and we provide Primal Pictures in the Sub-Saharan Africa and Australian territories. And today I'm here to work on a different approach to anatomy education. We're going to discuss using technology-enhanced learning, and our vehicle for today is Primal Pictures. When it comes to teaching anatomy as well as physiology, it's really important that the students are engaging in the subjects in a three-dimensional manner because they are three-dimensional subjects. And I'm very traditional in believing that the body donor is the best anatomy teacher, but contact time and availability of cadavers are both quite limited. And this is a way to teach and learn anatomy and physiology still in a three-dimensional manner. I am recording today's session, and you'll all receive a recording later on today or tomorrow, which you are welcome to share with any colleagues if you think that they would benefit or enjoy this session. But just to quickly run through what we'll go to today, I'm going to explain to you the type of support and resources you have available to you by having access to Primal Pictures through us. Then we will go back to basics because I know we have some new institutions on the call today, and some of you may not know the basics of Primal. So we will go through accessing the platform on and off campus. We'll chat about downloading the apps for offline use. And then to discuss our technology enhanced learning and taking a 3D approach to anatomy, we're going to use 3 of the Primal Pictures titles today, which will help us both with the teaching and the assessment aspects. And those will be anatomy and physiology, 3D real time, and then the perceptual and adaptive learning module, or PALMS. If you have any questions as we go through the session, please pop them in the chat box. I'm sorry I do have you all muted. It's just to help things run smoothly when we have large sessions, but we will have a Q&A session at the end, so please pop any questions, comments, or concerns there, and I will address them at the end of the session. Okay, but just to start off with the support that you have around you, if you have a subscription through Learning Curve, we have a team of anatomists who are here to provide staff and student support. So we do give institutional staff training sessions as well as group student sessions, which you can arrange with us. We have our group email address at the bottom of the screen, which you can use to reach out if you'd like to request any sessions. There is also a client services team at Primal Pictures who can help you with any concerns. And we also have these free webinars run monthly, both for staff and students, which anyone can access, as well as some online training resources on the different social media channels. So on our Instagram, we advertise our free monthly webinars as well as some different educational and interesting content. On our YouTube channel, we have a range of training resources, which can be really great to embed in your learning management system to help your students out. And on TikTok there, we mostly just have fun and try and engage with the students and get them excited about anatomy. But you can find us on all the socials at our handle, which is anatomy_sucks. This is having a bit of a joke. Anatomy definitely doesn't suck, but we use Primal Pictures to get staff and students more excited about the platform and show them how anatomy doesn't suck. Our student February webinars are happening next week, and we are going back to basics for them now at the beginning of the academic year. So if you haven't invited your students already, on our Instagram at the link in our bio, you can find the links to register for the webinars, or pop a message in the chat box if you want me to send you these links, and the students can attend for free. And if they register but don't attend, they will still be emailed a recording. Okay, but let's go back to basics on what is this resource and how do you access it. So very quickly to recap, for those who are new to Primal Pictures on the call, this is the world's most accurate and comprehensive online 3D anatomy and physiology resource. It's really powerful because all of the 3D content is built from real scan data. So we are looking at real human anatomy when we engage with the content. And the online nature of the platform and the app versions mean that students and educators can access the platform anytime, anywhere to have seamless usability of the teaching or learning content. So how do you access this platform? When you are on campus and connected to the university Wi-Fi, if you are set up with IP authentication, which most of you will be, then you can go directly to the website on campus and you'll be logged straight in. And that website is anatomy.tv. When you are off campus or not connected to the university Wi-Fi, you need to go through your library webpage. So you'll go to your library website, you'll go to the databases, and you'll find Primal Pictures either listed as Primal Pictures or Anatomy TV. And if you click the link through the library webpage, you will automatically be logged in. Some of our institutions like Netcare and Life Healthcare, you may be using username and password, and you should have those if you need them to access. But if you're ever confused or need help, please reach out to us. The email's at the bottom of the slide. There are various profiles you can set up on Primal Pictures, like a personal profile and a Palms profile. We will discuss these when we go through the training sessions so that you know the differences between the two and the benefits of them. And then while we are going through the session, I will also go through with you how to download the mobile apps. Really important for completely offline access. There is a very specific way to access the apps, so I'll discuss that with you. But I do have a PDF guide on how to download these. So if you'd like the PDF guide, please in the chat box, pop your email and say PDF guide, please, and I'll email that to you after the session. Okay, but today we're going to go through 3 titles while we are in Primal Pictures. That includes anatomy and physiology. Here, this is the backbone of Primal Pictures. It's the textbook style information, and we will discuss sourcing content for your teaching material. We'll discuss using it as a live lecture tool, and we'll discuss embedding content into your LMS or sending your students links to help them guide their own learning. After that, we will jump into 3D real time, which is our virtual dissection table. This is where we have the really powerful 3D models and you can perform a virtual dissection. It's incredibly customizable, and this has apps for download, and we will discuss the exciting feature of augmented reality, which is available on the app version of this title. Here we will discuss again a live lecture tool, as well as how to set up customized labeled diagrams or test questions, especially spot test style questions for teaching content. And then lastly, we will jump into the perceptual and adaptive learning module. This has both a learning and an assessment aspect. At its core, PALMS is here to help students improve their identification of anatomical structures in the learning side, and on the assessment side, test their identification. You as lecturers can set up full visibility over classes, how they're going in their learning aspect. You can set assessments for them and track how the students performed and all of that great stuff. So I'll show you all about that as well. Okay, but let's not do death by PowerPoint. Let's keep this session engaging and exciting. And I'm going to jump into the Primal Pictures homepage and kick things off. Just to remind you about access, if your university or institution uses username and password, you should have that username and password. If you use IP authentication, which most of our institutions do, you will go directly to the website, which is simply anatomy.tv, and you'll be logged straight in when you are connected to the university Wi-Fi. And if you are off campus, please use your library website and go to your available databases and find it listed there, either as Primal Pictures or Anatomy TV. Okay, but now that we're here on the homepage, just for those who need the basics, we're going to quickly orientate ourselves on the dashboard and figure out how to navigate our way through it, find specific content, search for content, and then we'll dive into the nitty-gritties. So you may be taken to the welcome page the first time you go on Anatomy TV. This is just going to give you some context on the platform and the type of content you can find. Please do know that you can use anatomy.tv on any device, mobile phones, tablets, computers. So everything we do here, you can do on any device. Our next page available to us is the dashboard. This is your main point of use. You will find all of the titles that you have available to you through your institution's subscription. And then on your dashboard, you have 3 customization tabs available to you. Now, I am currently logged into my personal profile, which means I have access to my recommended, favorited, and recently viewed content. So if you would like to have these customized tabs, you will need to create a personal profile. It is not necessary if you don't want to customize your experience, but if you would like to create your personal profile, you can do so at the icon at the top right-hand corner. It's very simple and easy to set up. You'll pop in your email address and you'll say what your occupation is and your specialization, so that you can then get recommended content based on what you are teaching, or if you're a student, what you are learning. There is a Learn tab. This is a newer edition with a new release by Primal Pictures. Most institutions aren't using this yet, so we're going to move past that and we are going to go to the browse option. So you can filter all of the Primal Pictures content, either by the different regions or systems of the human body. You can look for a specific type of media, or you can go by title, which is the same as being on your dashboard and going to all titles. Then, just like we would find in a textbook, you do have an alphabetical index, but the most helpful feature here, if you're not sure where to go for your information, is the search bar. So let's say today I want to learn about the heart. I can search for that structure and I will get all of the available information available to me relating to the heart. And you can open up multiple search panes and look for different structures or pieces of information, and you can toggle between your search panes. Okay, so that was a quick crash course on how to navigate this homepage over here. And to keep today's session meaningful, I'm not going to give you an overview of all of the titles on Primal Pictures. I'm going to dive straight into the 3 titles that we're going to look at today. So we'll start with anatomy and physiology. We'll source some teaching content over there. We'll go through tips and tricks on embedding and all that good stuff. And we'll dive deeper into the anatomy and do a bit of a virtual dissection in 3D real time. We'll discuss the apps and the augmented reality setting available. And then we'll finish off by going through some assessment slides and some learning tools in the perceptual and adaptive learning module. Okay, but jumping into anatomy and physiology, this is always the starting point with Primal Pictures. I call this our online textbook. It is a guided learning experience for the entire human body when it comes to anatomy, physiology, and histology. So these learning modules are broken down mostly into systems, but you'll see we have some really helpful introductory topics at the beginning, which will go over the basics before you can take a systemic approach to the body. And at the end, we have some other follow-up topics like development and inheritance. And that's where we're going to go through some embryological content. But for today's example, I'm going to choose the respiratory system. Once this opens up, you will see that the system is broken down into different topics or different lessons. Here, when the product opens up, I have my different topics or different lessons, which takes a logical approach to the system. We start with the gross anatomy, We then move into some physiology and some histology towards the end. And for today's example, I'm going to move past introduction just so we have something a little bit more exciting to look at. And I'm going to go to the upper respiratory tract. Now that I've chosen my lesson, I can minimize the topics list by clicking back on that icon in the menu on the left. And now I can focus on the lesson. Here in the middle is my main viewing pane or my interaction pane. This is where we're going to find multimedia, which is going to help us understand what is being conveyed to us in our information pane, or in other words, our textbook. At the top of our guided learning experience, you will find learning objectives, which will tell you exactly what's going to be covered in this lesson so you can check if it meets your needs before you continue. So before I go through this information, I want you to consider two things. I want you to consider that you could use this as a live lecture tool. The information pane can guide you in your lecture and what information you are conveying, while giving you some really great 3D content to help explain the information to your students. Another thing I want you to consider while I show you this information is that it can all be downloaded. I'll show you that when we get to that point in the menu, but all of this content you can download to put into a PowerPoint, a Word document, a PDF, whatever you're using to convey the information to your students, you can put into that piece of information, and you have the necessary copyright licensing to edit and distribute the content freely within your institution for teaching or research purposes. Okay, so now let's have a quick look at what the content looks like. Here we're first introduced to the upper respiratory tract and the components of the upper respiratory tract, and we have a 3D model to help us understand this. For our 3D model, you will see there are rollover labels for every visible structure, and if you select a structure, it is highlighted. You can also rotate the model, either by using the left and right arrows at the bottom of your screen, or by simply clicking and swiping along your screen. I do want to mention that by the time I share my screen over the internet, sometimes these models move a little bit jittery, but they do move nice and smooth and seamlessly for the end user. So please give it a go and know it's not going to look exactly the way it looks now while I share my screen. Then you can also move between different layers of anatomy using the up and down arrows. So as I click up, we start adding in more and more detail and some of the more superficial structures, and full interactivity is retained in our 3D model. Okay, so once we're finished with being introduced to the upper respiratory tract, we then learn more details about the nasal cavity. And it's important that you click on any image or 3D model as it pops up in your information pane, because it's going to help you understand what's being explained to you. So here, for example, it's highlighting the different concha as we learn about them. And once we're finished with that, we are presented with an interactive learning exercise. So this is really great for the students to consolidate their knowledge, but again, you could use this as a live activity. Some of the exercises are identification exercises, some of them are quizzes. So here, for example, the students need to identify some of the anatomy that they just learned about, such as the epiglottic cartilage over there, or the mucosa of the nasopharynx. But once you or your students are finished with this activity, you could close it up and continue to work your way through the lesson. Throughout the content, you will also find dissection images of body donors. These are here to always give a realistic view of the anatomy. Yes, the 3D models are built from real scan data, but they color-coded, the structures are clearly defined to make it easier to understand the anatomy. But here, we're humbled and reminded of the patient or the body donor anatomy And when I was a student and then transitioned into an educator, I found that using body donor specimens is the key. It's the golden nugget in anatomy education and in learning. So I really appreciate that you can take a look at dissection content throughout the material. Okay, and then we could move on to the paranasal sinuses. I think this 3D model is a really great example of the power of primal pictures because the paranasal sinuses, unfortunately, are notoriously difficult to teach and to learn and understand. So here we have a range of different models that are going to help students understand how the paranasal sinuses sit in relation to the cranial bones and the external anatomy. Okay, but I hope that gives you a good idea of what these lessons look like and how you could use them. If I go back to my menu on the left, we could now change up our topic and move to a different topic. Let's say we want to take a more cellular or physiological approach. We could come down here to the respiratory membrane and gas exchange and take a look at that lesson. Okay, but now let's quickly whiz through what else is in our menu on the left-hand side. So you still have your index available to you to look for specific information, but there is also a search bar at the top of your information pane where you could search for information at any time. The chemistry icon, our little flask over here, collects all of the interactive learning exercises that are found throughout the lessons. So if I quickly want to do a quiz to test my students' knowledge on the nasal cavity, I could open this up in the lesson and pick on students in the class and ask them to answer the questions. Here is simply all of the quizzes collected. And at the end of each system, you will get an overview quiz, which will cover the anatomy, the histology, and the physiology of that entire system in one large question bank. Then, very importantly, let's start applying this information now in the clinical setting. So first we have clinical conditions that will relate to this system. So if we go to pneumonia as our example, we will get a good overview and the causes, symptoms, diagnosis, and treatment of this disease. After that, we have information on how aging affects each system. So it's very important that young individuals and older individuals receive equal quality of care. And as we age, our anatomy ages with us and our physiology changes a little bit. So it's really important to understand the aging process so that everyone can have good quality care and that the healthcare practitioners are very aware of what happens in aging. And then after that, we have some case studies. So these can be really great exercises to give to your students as tutorials or practical sessions or even just homework exercises. Here, for example, we have a case of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And unfortunately, Peter is a 67-year-old smoker who has been diagnosed with COPD. And then we have a range of questions relating to Peter and his case, his anatomy and his physiology. And you or the students can then try and answer the questions before revealing the answer with the eye icon. Okay, now before I go through the rest of the menu, I'm quickly going to change what content I'm looking at, and you'll see why in a moment. So let's come back down to this lesson and let's think about this 3D model over here and the lesson on respiratory membrane and gas exchange. So the next icon in our menu was the star icon or the favorite icon. And you will see it says you are currently not signed into a personal profile. So here I can either sign in, create a profile, or continue without it. I'm going to sign in quickly because I do have a personal profile. And the benefit of being signed in to your personal profile while you are favoriting content is it then stores all of your favorites to the cloud. If you are not signed into a personal profile, your favorites will be stored to this device. So let's add this to my favorites, which means it's adding this 3D model and this lesson to my favorites. I'm going to click OK, and now I can easily revisit this on any device. If I log in on my phone and I'm signed into my personal profile, I can still see my favorites there. If you are not logged into a personal profile, it will store your favorites to the device and not to the cloud. Okay, then you can share a link to anything. The most helpful scenario I've found for using these links is to actually insert them into your PowerPoints or your teaching material to prompt your students to go and explore content further after they've worked through your lectures and your teaching material. It's really important that students can identify their own stumbling blocks in their education and work through them. So if you guide them to resources that cover the information that you go through in your lectures, then you are enabling them to work through their own stumbling blocks and guide their own learning outside of your classroom. Then a very important feature is the embed function. This allows you to embed the content directly into your learning management system and in your module pages to really take the spoon and put it in the students' mouths and trying to get them to engage with the 3D content and with the learning content while they're in the LMS and while it's in front of their faces. So when you embed content, it will retain all interactivity, like the roll over labels or the ability to rotate a model or move between layers depending on the content that you embed. So if I click on the embed function, it's now going to work on embedding whatever I have visible to me. At the moment, it's working on this interactive image. If I want the accompanying text or information pane to go with the content that I embed, I will click embed text. You can include a link to Primal pictures to where the content came from if you would like to. And then you can play around with the window size depending on what works best with the layout of your module page. Then lastly, you will select which type of LMS you use. And then I'm just going to choose a generic iframe tag, which tends to work on any sort of online platform. And here I now have my embed code generated, which I can simply copy and then go and paste into my embed function in the LMS. Okay, and then download. Really important for popping the information into your teaching content, but also to have content to use offline. So just putting my educator hat on, if I want to use this image in my slides, I can save this image and there it has been downloaded and it will be available in the downloads on my PC. But an important feature for the students who are needing offline learning content, you can save this entire lesson as a topic PDF. So if we download that, we will get the entire lesson packaged in a PDF. And this is a way that we can use the lesson fully offline if we download it while we are connected to the Wi-Fi. Okay, and then lastly, there's just some settings that you can change according to personal preferences. But that brings us to the end of anatomy and physiology. Really great for guided learning. You can use it as a live lecture tool to follow the design for your lecture and have some great visuals. You can download content, you can use links to information, and you can embed it in your LMS. Now let's move on to 3D real time. So this is our virtual dissection table, and this is one of the titles that has apps available for download. Let's quickly run through how to download these apps. If you want to download them, you do need to be on campus and connected to the university Wi-Fi when you go through the process so that it registers you're going through your institution's subscription. What you'll do is open up your mobile phone, you'll go to your internet browser and you'll go to anatomy.tv on your phone while connected to the university Wi-Fi. And then you will come and click on all titles, you'll go to 3D real time and you'll click download on whichever app store is relevant to you. You will then install the app, and it's important that you open up the app while you are still connected to the Wi-Fi because this is where it's going to register your subscription. So when you open the app, it's going to give you access options, and there will be a yellow bar that says existing anatomy TV login. If you click that while you're connected to the Wi-Fi, it will log you straight into your institution subscription, and you'll be able to use the content. Those who do use a username and password for your subscription, you can simply use that username and password to log into the applications, and these authenticate for a week at a time. So whenever you're on campus, if it's been about a week since you used the app, just reopen the app while you're connected to the university Wi-Fi so that it relogs you into the university subscription and keeps your access open. Okay, but now let's jump into what this title looks like. You'll see the body is broken down into different regions, or you can take a look at the whole body, but I'm going to choose the thorax for today's example. Like I mentioned earlier, the really exciting feature with the apps is augmented reality, which cannot be done on a desktop computer. So I won't be able to do that with you today, but I will tell you where to find it in the apps so that you can give it a go. Okay, but let's focus on the desktop version now, and I'll mention the augmented reality again later on, and let's discuss the layout of our page. We have our menu on the left-hand side, our virtual dissection table in the middle of the screen, and a list of structures on the right-hand side. Let's start off with our dissection table and the list of structures. I very quickly want to touch on how to create your own 3D model. There are pre-made models here, but you can fully customize what you view on your table. So if I come to my tools at the bottom of the screen and I clear it, my dissection table is now clear and ready for me to choose what I want to display. If I click on a group of structures, so let's choose all the respiratory organs in the thoracic region, it's going to throw them all in. Let's throw in the heart. And now I'm going to click the arrow next to arteries, and you'll see that you can maximize these lists and add in individual arteries or even portions of arteries one at a time. So you can fully customize what you show here, but I'm just going to quickly throw in our pulmonary arteries and our pulmonary veins. So now I've created a very quick customized 3D model. You'll see that my model has rollover labels for all of the visible structures. And if you select a structure, you will get the name of it. It will be highlighted, and you can get a pronunciation by clicking the speaker icon over there. If you want to rotate your model, you'll simply click down with your left cursor and swipe along the screen. If you want to change its tilt, go all the way to the left before you get to the menu bar, click down with your left cursor, and if you go up and down, the tilt of the 3D model will change. I can come back down to my model and click and swipe to rotate it. And then if I want to move its position on the screen, I'll click down my left and right cursor at the same time, and then I can move the 3D model around. Okay, now if you select a structure and you go to the text box, it's going to give you the important theoretical information about that structure. So, just putting my educator hat on again, if I were wanting to use this as a live lecture tool to explore the anatomy with my students, I could open it up, I could explore the anatomy, have some models pre-made already for me in my favorites. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And you could use this text box to help guide yourself in the information that you convey to the students while you explore the anatomy. Now let's just go through some of our tools at the bottom, which allow us to look at the anatomy in more detail. If I select the superior lobe of the right lung and I go to context, you will see that structure with its relevant anatomical context. I've just deselected that, and now I'm going to click inspect. That will isolate just that structure and allow us to explore its shape, its form, its anatomy, its contours. And then if we deselect that, we go back to where we were. If I click examine, everything else is going to go into X-ray mode. And now we can explore some relational anatomy a bit. And then if I click ghost, that structure is going to turn into X-ray mode. And now we can appreciate the branching of the pulmonary arteries and vein and the bronchi as they go into the lobes. And we could take this one step further and select the structure once again and click hide. Or in other words, virtually dissect the structure away. And this is how we can now do a bit of a virtual dissection experience. Okay, again, if these models look a little bit jittery, it's just because I'm sharing my screen over the internet, but this is nice and smooth as the end user. So really wonderful for projecting in the classroom. It's also really great for creating video recordings for your students if you are uploading a lecture online. But let's quickly go through the rest of the menu and some of the other functionalities and a few more teaching tips and tricks that I have. So the next icon in our menu over here, the window frame icon, here we have some dissection images. And when we open up a dissection image, you'll see the 3D model changes. And now the 3D model mirrors the dissection image. And that has been done to help us understand and interpret the body donor anatomy. So you'll see that when we highlight a structure, either on the 3D model or on the dissection image, it will highlight it on both to help with understanding the body donor anatomy. The key organs and organ systems have also already been modeled for you. So I would recommend scrolling down past the dissection images and taking a look at the pre-made models before you create one, because there may be a 3D model that already meets your needs. Okay, so here's a nice 3D model showing the lungs and some of the relational anatomy. I'm just going to change the look of some of these structures before I go a little bit further into the menu. Okay, so the next icon in our menu is where you can favorite content. Again, really helpful for pre-curating what you want to go through live with your students, and really, really helpful if you create your own customized label diagram. And then we have settings. There's a lot here. I'm not going to go through it all, but two important settings. Number one, we can change the 3D model to cadaver colors. And this is going to force the students to think more critically about the difference between an artery, vein, and nerve based on their anatomy and not based on their color. Then another setting that we don't see here, but we will see in the mobile app version, and that's the augmented reality mode. So if you want to project any 3D model into your reality, open up the app on your phone, click on the settings, and scroll down to the bottom, and it will say AR mode. You can activate that, and then it will use the camera on your phone to put the 3D model into your world. Okay, then there are a range of drawing, labeling, and pinning tools. These are fairly easy to use. You can insert pins and labels. You can also alter what a label says. So here, for example, we could alter this to say, name the structure. So this can be used to either make test questions or to create customized labeled diagrams. And you can save these at any moment to pop into your lectures or your tests and examinations using the camera icon. So let's call this Feb webinar test. I'm going to click OK. And now it's going to ask me if I want to download this image. If I click confirm, it will automatically be downloaded into the downloads folder of my computer. And here I have it. It is on a transparent background. So if I paste this image onto a white background, then the background will be white. Okay, and then You can still share a link to anything you are looking at or have created. So really helpful to put into your teaching material to prompt the students to go and guide their own learning a little bit further. And lastly, these arrows at the bottom are just another way in which you can use the 3D models if you're getting a bit lost, but I find it much easier to simply use the mouse. Okay, but that brings us to the end of 3D real time, a really great way to explore the anatomy in detail and create some customized content. Lastly, we are going to finish off with palms very quickly, and palms is the perceptual and adaptive learning module. The first time you use palms, you will need to sign up. And if you have already created a personal profile, sign up with that same email address. I always recommend using your institutional email address, and then the two profiles will sync. Students will also need to sign up to Palms the first time they use it because the entire experience is customized and tracked. So you as educators can get access to the administration and score reporter sides where you can create classrooms and have visibility over what your students are doing and how well they're doing. And then the students, when they sign up, they'll simply just have the anatomy suite where they can learn more about anatomy and also test their knowledge. So let's very quickly see palms from the student's perspective. I'm going to open up my anatomy suite and select which region of the body I want to learn more about the anatomy and test my knowledge on. So I'm just going to go somewhere where I have some previous history. I'm going to select the thorax. And then you must select the group of structures that you are interested in working through. If I come to the heart chambers and pericardia, here now is my learning module. I have some instructions which will explain what I show you. I have the assessment aspect as well as the learning aspect. And here on the right-hand side, I can change which structures I'm working on. And at the bottom, we get a summary of how well I'm doing with these structures. I'm nearly finished this learning module, so I actually should restart it so we can see a better example, but let's take a quick look at the learning quiz. So I'm going to click continue here. And while this loads and then times out, I'm just going to explain to you how the learning side works. So it's going to ask students to identify structures, and it is running a very powerful algorithm in the background that is perceiving how well the student is doing based on their accuracy and based on their fluency, which is based on response time and gives an indication of confidence. So based on the students' results, it's going to help them master each structure. And once they've mastered identifying certain structures, it's going to not focus on those anymore. And it's rather going to focus on the structures that the student doesn't know yet until they have mastered them. Okay, so that's how it's customizing the learning experience, but let's see a few examples. So there it's asking us to identify the right auricle. And because we're in the learning side, we get feedback. It tells me, great, you got that correct in 6.4 seconds. Okay, there's asking us about the left auricle. And wonderful, we got it right quite quickly. So now what happens if we get a question wrong? Here it's asking us to identify the right ventricle, but let's accidentally say that it's the right atrium. And you'll see that because we're in the learning side, it's going to help us learn from our mistakes. It's going to remember that we got this one wrong. And it's going to space the examples a little bit before it asks it to us again. But it will keep repeating that structure periodically until we have mastered it. Okay, so that's a very quick look at the learning side. Students can then use the insights and scores at the bottom to interpret how well they are doing. And you as lecturers, if you set a classroom, will have visibility over all of this data. So here I can see how much time I've spent in this learning module. I've viewed 8 of 8 categories. Each category is a structure that it wants me to master, and I have mastered 7 out of 8 of those structures so far. I'm going to go past assessment history. We'll see that in a moment. But under learning history, you can see every question I've ever attempted, and you can see my accuracy and my fluency or my confidence in each of them. But that's a little overwhelming and actually doesn't summarize how well I'm doing. And that's where the categories section comes in. So here I can see each structure, how many times I have attempted that structure, and my average accuracy and fluency for each of them. And you can see which structures I have mastered and which are still in progress. Okay, so then what does an assessment look like? The assessment is going to ask us to identify each structure, but it's only going to give us summarized feedback at the end. So here we can go and identify all of our structures, and rather than giving us feedback as we go, it's going to give us a summary at the end of how well we did. So I'm not going to complete this entire assessment for the sake of time, but if I go to my assessment history, I can see my accuracy, so my achievement mark, and my average fluency or my average confidence for each of the assessments. Okay, so that is palms from the student perspective. At any moment, they could go back and change what anatomy they are working on. But let's now take a look at the facilitator features. So firstly, under administration, this is where you can see all your students who have signed up to PALMS in your organization, and you can create classes. So before you create a class, you do require your students to sign up to PALMS. And once they have signed up, you can then come and create a class. Let's call this web test class. And then you will choose what they have access to. So you need to select the anatomy suite, and in a moment we'll be able to customize specifically what they have access to. So I'm going to come into this class now, and I'm going to add students. Now you can sit here and add in individual students one at a time, but realistically, if you have an organization of thousands of students, that's not the way you want to do it. And you can rather add from a list. So in your class list, that's usually an Excel spreadsheet. You can literally copy and paste all your student email addresses and come and paste them here and click continue. If anyone hasn't signed up to PALMS yet, it is going to tell you, and they will not be added to your classroom. So then you can go to those students and say, hey, you need to sign up to PALMS by X date, otherwise you're not going to get your achievement mark, or however you choose to run it. And then you can then go and add them once they have signed up. Okay, so that's how to create a classroom. If you need further help with this, please book a session with me and I'll happily do it. Primal Pictures can also set up your classrooms for you if you would like that. You would just need to provide a list of all your students. Under the score reporter side, this is where you can track how well your students are doing in the learning aspect and the assessment aspect. I've skipped over something. I'm very quickly going to go back to administration, and I'm going to go back to that class that we set up because I actually didn't choose what my classroom has access to. So here within my classroom, I go to class settings, and then you can choose if you give them access to everything, or you can switch off access to everything and only choose specific pieces of anatomy that you want them to focus on. So if we choose the regions of the brain, we can, number one, give them access, and you can choose multiple things if you want to, and then you can choose whether to use the guided option or not. I do like the guided option because with the guided option, what it does is it first asks them to do a pre-test or an assessment one before they do the learning module, so that they have a baseline of what do I know, what don't I know, how much knowledge do I have going into this. Then it will prompt them to work through the learning module in its entirety until they have mastered all of those structures. And then it will do a post-test or an assessment two after mastering all the subjects to see how well they have retained that information and how well they can identify all of the structures. Then the delayed test is kind of the secret sauce or the magic part of PALMS, where you can set the test to only open up on a specific date for your classes. And that way you can set a PALMS test as a formal or informal assessment, even a classwork exercise or tutorial. and you can track their marks and integrate that into your marking system if you so choose. So now that we know how we can pick and choose what our students do and have access to, let's now take a look at some data. Okay, I know this can be quite overwhelming in the beginning, so please, if you want a more in-depth session on this, I will happily do it with you. But here in Score Reporter, I can now select which structures I'm wanting to go and see my progress on, whether it's the entire school, different classes, or different students. You do start off with a school overview, but realistically, you would look at your data one class at a time. So here I have a little bit of data in a test class. I can see how many students have been working on this learning module, how many have done the pre-test before the learning module, and how many have done the post-test after the learning module, as well as the delayed test, which I set on a specific date. Here I can see the achievement for each of my students, as well as the categories. This one isn't a great example. Unfortunately, Stephanie over here has not completed her assignments or her tests, but for the learning tool, the assessment tool on the pre-test, post-test, and delayed test, you can get their accuracy and their fluency for all of these. So you can see how much time your students have spent on mastering the structures and how many of those structures they have mastered in the learning side. You can get their accuracy for the different tests, which is their achievement mark, and then you can also take a look at their fluency. And this data can be saved as a CSV file, which you can then integrate into your marking system. Okay, that was a very quick crash course on palms. So before I conclude this session, I would just like to remind you that you have access to us. We can help you out with further training if you need it or if you'd like to set it up for your students. But when in doubt, on YouTube, oh, that's not YouTube. We do have training resources. So if you go to anatomy_sucks on YouTube, we have different playlists. And my favorite is the Primal Pictures title crash course. If we come to this playlist over here, you'll see we have short training videos on each individual titles, such as palms. So if you need to revisit any of them, or if you want to look at titles we didn't look at today, you can view those training videos here on YouTube. Okay, but that brings us nearly to the end of our session. So I'm now going to hop into the chat box and see if there are any questions or comments. If you have a question or a comment, please pop it in there. I see quite a few of you would like the PDF on how to download the applications. Absolutely, I'll send those to you after the session. And I really hope that that helps you. I would strongly recommend sharing it with your students so they have the information they need to download the apps as well. But I'm just going to wait a few more moments to see if there are any more questions. If you don't have a question and you are ready to leave, thank you for coming. I really appreciate your time and I hope that this was helpful. But I will hang around for a few more moments to see if there are any further questions. Okay, there don't seem to be any more questions, so I will wrap things up there. Thank you again for your time. I really hope to see you in future webinars where we explore different topics. Please, please, please share the free webinars with your students so they can learn more as well, and don't hesitate to book a student training session with us. I see we have a hand up. Let me see if I can unmute you quickly. There we go. Melisande, I have allowed your microphone. If you would like to unmute yourself and ask a question, you're welcome to. Melisande, are you there? Was that an accidental hand? Do you have a question? You should be able to unmute yourself. It's an accident. Okay, no problem at all. Let's wrap things up there. Thank you so much, everyone. I will be sending off those PDF documents and recordings to you, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and goodbye.